Hello and welcome back to the Fighting Talk 2 podcast with myself, Mr. Fighting Talk, aka Connor, joined today by a very special guest, 3-0 as a professional, Ben Ellis from Cage Warriors. Thank you very much for joining me, Ben.
Hi, mate. Thank you for having me on.
No drama at all, man. So my main question, to be honest with you, was where's the nickname? All these fighters have got nicknames, but I don't see one in between your name. What's going on?
I remember there was a Nick Diaz interview like years ago. I'm not gonna try and do his accent because I'll butcher it. Somebody asked him about nicknames, and he just went, "What? You think this is a fucking game?" He's like, "This is a fucking fight." And I literally heard that, and then when I heard that, I was like, "Yeah, that's it. I'm not having a nickname." So yeah. Plus, I got the worst imagination ever, so I probably have a shit one, and it would be stuck with me forever.
Yeah, because I always wonder how people get their nicknames. Is it the gym that gives it to you? Do you give it to yourself? Because a few of your teammates have obviously got nicknames, but where do they get them from?
I reckon it's probably 50-50 split between the gym, your friends in the gym giving it to you, and then giving it to yourself. Like Lou's obviously got to go and Lewis the foot long. It goes pretty well. Like King Khaled is just like say it flows quite nicely because of the 2Ks, and then we have a few others just because they kind of rhyme.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm the boring one, just Ben Ellis.
Wow. It means people remember you for your name instead of remembering this. I think I saw one the other day that was like cheesecake, and you have all these kind of wacky names. And you just think, let's leave that out. Unless exactly like you say, man, let's just get down to fighting.
Yeah, kind of like you say, you get like kind of stupid. I mean, some of them are like, some of them are funny, like kind of organically. Some of them, but to be fair, I think that Notorious Conor McGregor is a pretty good one.
Yeah, and
it's just quite it's more of like a
persona as well.
Yeah. So like I like that one, but in general, I'm just like I'm here for the fight. So all of that stuff, I got real no interest in it.
Exactly. So you say you are here to fight, and you obviously are. You're 3-0 as a professional, but you went 8-0 before that. So you're 11-0 in total in your career. But do you? You've got some crazy wins. We'll talk about the half guard one in a minute, and you've got a lot of unanimous decisions as well. So you're clearly a grinder. Do you know what I mean? You're not afraid to go that 15 minutes as well. But to go the 15 minutes, you need to have pretty good cardio, right? So what do you focus on in the gym to really get your cardio and your stamina up? Is it just rolling around on the mats? Do you run marathons? What is it?
It's quite a big variety, to be honest. So I do a lot of running. There's like CrossFit type sessions where it'll be a combination of like weighted exercises with more combat related stuff. So maybe a ground and pound bag, a heavy bag combined with like your typical CrossFit movements, like, like your clean and jerks, burpees, etc. So we do a lot of that. And then the rest of it, I think, is just the hard rounds. Like 12 threes is kind of a minimum. Like even on like a light dish day, like yesterday in the morning was our like quote unquote light session, and that was 12 threes, and the stations were 3 minutes on the rower, then one heavy bag, one maze ball bag, and then a shadow box round, and you got the like the string across the cage, so you use that to roll. So those were our 4 stations. We banged out 12 of them, and then that was our light session. And then say if there's a hard MMA based session, it's probably going to look something like 5 sparring rounds. So it's like once you do 5-6 5-minute rounds hard, normally for me it's with the bigger guys as well. 3 5s against somebody my own size. Yeah, it's nothing. To be honest, I don't even think about the cardio. It's not a concern.
Yeah, of course, it's probably obviously just ingrained in you for such a long time as well. So you say when you're sparring with the bigger guys, you obviously fight at 145. But what kind of weight do you walk around at? Do you have to cut a lot of weight to make weight, or is it not too bad for you?
About 20 pounds.
Wow.
Yeah, about 20 pounds. I'll go in the cage somewhere between 163 and 160. It sounds like a lot, but to be honest, that's pretty comfortable. I don't die. Normally 4, 5, maybe 6 hours after weigh-in, I start to feel good again. But then go in somewhere between 18 to 20 pounds heavier than what I weighed in at.
Yeah, that's crazy. That's crazy that you can put on such a large amount of weight in such a short amount of time, really.
Yeah, I say the nuts thing is as well is like those numbers aren't anything to shout about. Like, you've seen when fighters fight in California, they release the fight night weights.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And those fight night weights are so. Basically, it's just when the fighters turn up at the arena with clothes on, they'll hop on the scale. So obviously the clothes make you heavier, but some of those featherweights are clocking like high 160s. So yeah, I'm in that ballpark. I'm by no means massive, just pretty much standard for a UFC featherweight.
Yeah, of course. So you're obviously 3-0 as a pro, but how did you feel the jump was between going from the amateurs to the pros? Obviously, did you feel like it was a massive change in competition, or do you feel like it was just kind of an easy transition for you?
I thought it was an easy transition, to be honest, because as an amateur, it wasn't just fighting whoever and then going pro. I had 2 titles, and specifically in the last 2 or 3 fights, we were saying to promoters that I'd fight on their show if they brought in somebody in the top 15, like on Tapology, because I wanted to be fighting guys who were going to go on to be high level pros. Like that is literally the whole purpose of fighting at amateur.
Yeah.
So my last 2 fights were to 2 top 5 guys in the UK and beat them both. So then when I went pro, if anything, it was a bit of a step down in terms of who I was fighting.
Okay.
So yeah, no, I was pretty comfortable. Obviously, slight rule change with elbows, knees to the head. Mm-hmm. But it was stuff that, because I spend so much time training with pros anyway, the camps were more structured to pro fights anyway.
Yeah, of course.
So yeah, it was no drama.
Yeah, man. So obviously talking about being in camp and stuff, do you have like a nutritionist? I know when quite a lot of people turn pro, being a chef myself, I'm into nutrition and stuff like that as well. But do you have a nutritionist that looks after you? Do you still kind of do it on your own? Do you have any kind of like interest in your own nutrition that you look after yourself, or how does that work for you?
So I have a nutritionist and an S&C coach. That's Reece Jones. Mm-hmm. He's doing really well. No fairness to him. I met him because he works with Mason Jones as well.
Okay.
So Mason got me in touch with him, and we have a great relationship, to be honest. Just because I'm quite into it myself. So rather than just nodding along, saying I'm listening to his program, I'm honest with him. I'll say I've done this. I'll say I've done that. What have we done? I think we've done 5 weight cuts, maybe 6, and it's at the point now where I kind of tell him what I'm doing, and then unless he has any big objections, he lets me crack on. But that's the good thing about him. He's not trying to dictate anything. But then at the same time, don't get me wrong, if I was doing something he wasn't happy about, he'd definitely let me know. Just because I train a stupid amount. So when we first started, the very first time we worked together, he gave me a plan, and I lost something like 3 pounds in like 2 days.
Okay.
And then I said to him, I was like, I'm losing weight too quick. Because they say 3 pounds might not sound like that much, but when you're already that lean, it's a hell of a lot. So we just wrote it all back and went from there, and then we've tweaked it. And like anything, the more you do it, the better you get. And I think we've pretty much got it down to a T now.
Yeah, for sure. I suppose working out what your calories in versus calories out and how much you're burning throughout the sessions as well.
Yeah, even in terms of like illness. I'm trying to remember the date I started working with him. I want to say it was like 2.5 years ago. And I think in that time I've been ill once. Mm-hmm. Whereas before that, pretty much every fight camp I'd get ill. Just obviously your immune system is weak when you're cutting weight. Or even dieting like quite extremely. So the fact that I haven't got ill at all or ill once in that time, that pretty much makes Reece worth his money, in all fairness to him.
Yeah, no, definitely, man, definitely. So when you are training, when you are in camp, what's the average day look like? Because for me, I've done a little bit of combat sports myself, and never really been in camp, but I've had some pretty crazy weeks leading up to some stuff. But what's the average day look like? Because for me, I just think pro fighters, they're training at 9 o'clock in the morning, they're training at lunchtime, they're rolling in the afternoon. Is it like that, or is it more structured?
So I work full time as well. I'm the account manager of a finance company. So we meet up in the morning, train in the morning. That's normally like an hour to an hour and a half. Mm-hmm. Normally that involves some sort of grappling because it's early and it's cold. The best thing you can do is get stuck in, do hard grappling rounds. and then normally finishes with some yoga after that.
Mm.
And then the night, then that's the big one. That's 3 hours plus. So I reckon an average day looks something like get a run in, either a run, a yoga, or a conditioning circuit, grappling rounds. And then in a separate session, then it would be got anything from shoot boxing rounds, so like Thai pads into shoot boxing, ground and pound sparring, straight wrestling into shoot boxing. There's loads of stuff we do, to be honest. Quite got it. Go and give you a massive essay about it. But it's brutal. It's like 3.5, 4 hours plus a day. That's not including the yoga. The yoga's more of a supplement.
Yeah.
And yeah, just graft away. But to be honest, I love it. So it's nothing to me. I would do it for free 100%.
Yeah, of course. If you're doing what you love, it just makes it so much easier to do it all the time.
Yeah, definitely.
So you touched a little bit on about the yoga there. So obviously, not many people associate fighters with being butch and manly, tattoos and swearing, and doing all mad shit. But yoga would kind of be very, very beneficial to a fighter. Obviously, if you sat there in rubber guard, or you want to pull someone into your guard, even sinking a triangle, you need to be pretty flexible, right? So, do you feel that yoga benefits are crazy like additions to your game, or what do you mean? What do you think about that?
I think honestly, it is the best supplementary training you can have for combat sports. Like end of. So, if you take the core training of MMA, so wrestling, jiu-jitsu, kickboxing, Muay Thai, blah 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 blah.
Mm-hmm.
If you take all of that out, you could have one thing. I'd say yoga. But to be honest, that comes from Lou. Like, what did you say the stereotypical MMA fighter was? Was it tattoos, big burly, swears a lot? Like, that is Lou Long.
Yeah.
But then you see him, like, he's so flexible. He can do the full splits both ways. And then obviously that applies to kicking high. It applies to flexibility in your guard. The guy can pull triangles out of anywhere.
Mm-hmm.
You think you're past his guard, and then he brings his leg all the way around and you're back in his guard. So yeah, he's the one who really brought it to the gym. So it's simple, it's compulsory. When you finish the sessions with him, you're doing yoga whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
And it just so happens that so many of the boys benefited from it that we all really like it now. And I do loads of extra yoga. Like, naturally, I'm quite thick, like stocky.
Mm-hmm.
And I've always struggled with flexibility. So for God, like the last few years, I've been doing that, and just the difference is insane. Like, not just in terms of performance, but in terms of injury prevention, relaxing, sleeping well, recovery between sessions. You think you're a goner. You think you can't train anymore. You do an hour of yoga, and then an hour after that you're eating. And then all of a sudden, the hour after that, you're thinking, oh, you know what? I'm all right. I'm not as bad as I thought I was. Yeah. So yeah, I can't really speak highly enough about it. And we don't just do it with Lou. We also, quite a few of the boys use hot pot yoga in Cardiff. I mean, obviously that stopped because of COVID, but prior to that, I was in them most mornings.
Yeah.
So
also,
yeah,
with yoga, you've got the breathing exercises of yoga as well, right? So they must help when you're, obviously, if you're in someone's rear naked choke, for instance, or you're in a triangle yourself, you have those breathing exercises that you do throughout yoga that would essentially help you keep calm in those situations, right?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, you see it. You see people warm up before fights, and 30 seconds into a pad round, they're blown out of their ass. Same thing in a fight. You see people blow early, and it's nothing to do with anything physiological. It's you. Well, I say nothing physiological in terms of how fit they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's because they're panicking, they're hyperventilating, they're breathing, but they're not breathing deep. So yeah, it's a massive influence on it. Like, I can't do it, but have you seen the thing Hickson Gracie's famous for? Where you can like contort his stomach. If you Google it when you have 2 minutes, Lou can do that, and just the control over his diaphragm and rib cage is insane.
Yeah, is it like the vacuum hose? Like quite a lot of bodybuilders do it, where they suck their entire kind of abdomen in and upwards.
Yeah, you've got it, and then they can make the whole thing sort of wriggle.
Yeah, I'm with you. So he's a belly dancer. It's basically what you're saying.
Yeah, it's impressive. And say I can't do it, but but Lucan, and yeah, he's definitely, he's not just big on the flexibility aspect, but also definitely the breathing side of things.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So you say you've still got a day job as well. I just wanted to touch on that. Is it difficult to maintain the two? Obviously, having a day job must be so difficult being a pro fighter as well. Is there going to be a point where you're going to need to stop your day job to concentrate on fighting full time?
I think it may happen at some point. But to be honest, I'm just gonna put it off for as long as I can. I'm lucky. I have a job that I like. Like a lot of the accounts that we work with sponsor me for fighting.
Okay.
So yeah, it flows really naturally. And if I ever do have to stop working just to fight, it'll probably be a sad day. But I find like just in terms of managing my time, it's difficult, but I can do it easy enough. I mean, sometimes my girlfriend hates me when I'm not home very much, but she's in the room now. She hears me. I mean, I'm a goner. But yeah, other than that, it's not too bad.
Yeah, because it must be difficult to maintain working full time, training, for fights and stuff, and being in camp and maintaining a relationship, right? Having all of those things going on in your life, it does get, super stressful. But obviously, your girlfriend's very supportive of what you do, right?
Honestly, unbelievable. The other morning, 7:15, there she was with the massage gun. She didn't have to be up for another hour, and there she was giving, like I say, massage in the back of my leg. So yeah, I can't really speak highly enough about her, in all fairness to her. I hope she doesn't hear that. I don't want to speak good about her too much.
Yeah, you can't go either way. You can't say too much good or too much bad.
Yeah, she's got to know her place. If she only hears that, then I'm really a goner.
So you spoke a little bit about your sponsors as well there. So how important is it to have sponsors in your career? Obviously, I've spoken to a few fighters that do have some and some that don't, but it feels like having sponsors on board can really make a difference to a fighter's lifestyle.
Yeah, game changer, especially if you wanted to be fighting full time. You'd have to have them, just because obviously the income from fighting only comes if you actually fight. Like if for reasons outside your control you don't fight, you're not getting paid. Simple as that. So yeah, they're pretty essential. I mean, even for me, I don't ask for a massive amount of money from the sponsor just because I don't particularly need it, but they don't mind to give it, and it does. It helps a lot.
Yeah, really.
So yeah, no, people are very very generous. Obviously, they can offset it against their tax as well. So I'm very grateful for the help I get. In all fairness.
Yeah, that's good, man. That's good. You said, having this whole Corona thing and stuff like that, you didn't fight for quite a big portion of 2020 as well, right? So that would have affected you in quite a lot of other ways. But you were obviously still training and stuff because you're a pro fighter. But were you kind of yearning to get back into the cage? Is it, a constant burning desire for you to get back in and hurt people?
Yeah, it is. In all fairness, I was absolutely itching for a fight, like pretty much straight away. But I had a fight scheduled for March, which got cancelled, and then there was talks about June, July when they weren't really sure what was going on. That got cancelled. Then I think I was scheduled for September, and the guy just didn't turn up on fight week. I'm sure I won't say too much bad about that because I don't know the full story. But the long and short of it is he just didn't turn up. And then obviously I ended up fighting him then in December. So by the time December came, yeah, I was itching. But the goal for MMA for me is not so much in terms of material. Like I'm not that driven by being, like I say, having a belt or this or having all that. It's literally about the skill set. It's like I want my skill set to be absolutely elite.
Yeah.
So for that reason, even if you're not competing, fighting, that mission never really stops. We just train every day. But yeah, now the fights are back on, I'm, yeah, pretty excited to be back in the cage.
Yeah. Have you got anything booked for this year, or is it still just kind of I'm in an R in for you at the moment?
No, I signed the contract today.
Fantastic.
So I'm fighting now in March in the next trilogy. March the either the 18th, 19th, or 20th.
Amazing, man. Well, good luck for that. Good luck for that. I've seen a few of your fights, and you're pretty brutal in a lot of ways. Like we said, you've gone the distance for quite a lot of fights, so you're more than happy to grind it out. And then you had a KO win recently when you were in half guard and you knocked the guy out completely Sparko, which was very very impressive. But you know, how did you get the power to swing off them shots? It was just a constant repetition of banging the hooks into the guy's head. But you know, how do you feel
Yeah,
knocking a guy out
it's
like that?
just, yeah. To be honest, just for me, I was kind of like water off a duck's back. I didn't really think about it too much. It wasn't until after the fight, after I had a shower, and then everybody started messaging me that I was like, oh God, everyone's quite impressed by that. But yeah, I just thought it was a regular knockout. I put a few people out in my time, so it was just sort of whatever. Um, but yeah, it's one of those. I have power anyway, but it just seems to be so much more prominent on the ground.
Hmm.
I think if I was gonna guess, I think it's because I'm quite technical on my stand up, so I won't risk overextending and exposing myself. Whereas on the ground, you have leverage from their body and you can really just swing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
So yeah, I tend to get that reaction off a lot of people. I think that's why a lot of my, especially my amateur fights, wins by decision. Because when I'm on the ground with people, they're not massively trying to get up. They're more concerned with me not hurting them.
Hmm.
And when they're just sort of lying flat on their back, trying to cover their face, like the ground and pound gets minimalized, but then I could stay on top of them for all the time easily,
Yeah.
which can be frustrating, particularly in the last fight. That was frustrating. But it's just something I'm going to have to say, something we're working on now, that if somebody is being negative, am I going to be happy to lie on top of them and win comfortable, or are we going to start looking at plan B and C for basically just inflicting damage?
Yeah.
So that's a big emphasis now.
Yeah, I suppose because quite a lot of MMA fans, they look at these kind of, you know, when you look at kind of Usman, for instance, who will literally, he's going to wrestle fuck you basically, and he's going to win by decision. That's kind of his game plan when he goes out there. But are you happy? Do you leave happy when with a win by decision when you've just grinded it out, or would you prefer to get those kind of highlight reel knockouts?
I think it depends on context. So um, if it's a back and forth affair, and to be honest, I've not really had many. Most of my wins have been, like you say, unanimous, like very, very clear. I've never had a judge think I've lost a fight.
Mm-hmm.
So if I was in a situation where it was a really close fight, tit for tat, and I won on points clearly, but it was close, then maybe not. If I'm in a situation where I struggle to inflict damage, then yeah, like I wasn't too happy with the last performance, to be honest, just purely based on the fact that the only time I really hurt him was, I think, like a minute into the fight when I had him on the cage.
Mm-hmm.
And then the rest of the time he did quite a good job of just staying tight. Like I say, granted, not he's not winning the fight or even coming close to winning the fight, but he's minimizing how much I could hurt him. And then as soon as you win the fight and you get out of the cage, you're like, oh, I just really wanted to whack him.
Yeah.
So yeah, to answer your question, I'm gonna want to finish for sure.
Yeah, I guess it might be quite frustrating if someone is being negative on the ground as well. You know, we see a lot of fighters that kind of get up and they're so frustrated that they've just been wrestled for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, or whatever it may be, that they kind of lash out and they get a little bit upset. But at the end of the day, you've got to leave the cage with a W, right? That's the whole point of it.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, again, real similar for that last fight. He had a bit of a tantrum after the fight. And it was like, well, mate, we had 15 minutes and you could have done pretty much whatever you wanted to do to me. And until the third round, you didn't really do anything. So if you're stressed out, then look in the mirror and be stressed out with yourself. Because whilst I was frustrated that I didn't get to hurt him more, I knew I'd won the fight clearly. But yeah, normally I'm able to inflict a fair bit of damage. So even when I don't get the finish, people are fairly banged up. And then in that scenario, it's not quite so bad.
Yeah, definitely. And when you do inflict damage, so obviously this half guard KO that you had, the guy was out cold for a while afterwards. Do you feel any remorse after that, or do you just kind of go, well, if he didn't, exactly as Corey Sandhagen said at the weekend, if I didn't do it to him, he would do it to me. You both are there to knock each other out, right? But do you get any kind of remorse, or do you feel bad or anything?
No, not at all. To be honest, I'll be honest. I was glad it happened. Like if I don't do that to him, he's gonna do it to me. So it is what it is. I'm glad I've sparked him, but then say I didn't really celebrate too much. take a seat. When he gets up and he shows he's all right, then happy days. Like, all good. And go from next. Obviously, I want everyone to be healthy after the fact. But you know what it's like? I can't sit there and say, oh, yeah, no, I'm really upset I knocked him out. It's like, well, mate, you're fucking lying. So, yeah, glad I knocked him out, but also glad that, say, when they wake up and they're okay, then that's all good.
Yeah, of course, man. Of course. So what's the goal for you in the next You obviously said that you're not chasing belts or any material or anything. You just want to be a good technician at what you do. But what's the kind of end goal for your MMA career? If you're not chasing the belts, obviously.
So short-term goal. Sorry, not really answer the question, but short-term goal. I got 4 fights left on my contract with Cage Warriors. So end of this year, I'll be 7-0. And then literally simple as that. The next, basically in total, try and get to 50-0. That's including my amateur stuff. So what will that be? That'd be like 42 pro fights. And that's about it. And if you win all those fights, you're gonna have the belts anyway.
Yeah.
You're gonna have plenty of money anyway because you're winning. So winning takes care of everything. So my plan is to always win, and at the end of that stage, just have like an absolute elite skill set to the point where I wouldn't say, you know, some guys like to say, oh yeah, so if a Muay Thai world champion comes to the gym, you hold your own. And if this guy comes to the gym, you hold your own. The reality is that's not going to happen. If somebody trains something 7 days a week and you're splitting your time, you're never, ever going to compete. But my aim would be for anyone in the world to come to the gym and spar MMA, and I'm more than fine. That's the real aim.
Yeah, because I heard a guy I know once said, like, fighters that do MMA are, they're like GPs. They're kind of good at everything. Whereas, you've got specific people, like you say, Muay Thai fighters, BJJ fighters. They're like the brain surgeons. They do one specific thing very, very well. But a GP or like your local doctor or something kind of does all of them and can know a little bit about everything to hold their own in all of those fields.
Yeah, I definitely agree. So again, I have no real interest in being elite at any individual thing. I'd much rather be one of those guys where if it comes down to a real scrap, even a street fight, who's going to win? And it's going to be the MMA guy. So yeah, that's where my head's at.
Yeah, man. So you say you don't mind getting into a scrap. So how would you describe your fight style then? Would you say you are more of a wrestler because you spent quite a lot of time on the ground, or a brawler? It's always hard to work out what people categorize themselves as when they're good at everything.
Yeah, a tricky one. I'd have to say boxer, wrestler, based on what I've shown in the cage. I do box a lot. I've boxed for like a really long time. And I wrestle a lot just because generally people can't stop me taking them down.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like a trump card. It's like, well, if I try to take him down, the likelihood of it is he's going to be on his ass sometime fairly soon. And then once he's there, it's pretty difficult for him to hurt me. So it gets more and more tempting to use it. But again, like you said, if I have to start using, like say, jiu-jitsu, Muay Thai, kickboxing, any of that stuff, like I can do what I want, really.
Yeah, absolutely, man, absolutely. I'm judging by the fights that I've seen that were on, YouTube and stuff like that. You're very well versed in all of these things. So
you gotta be now, and you gotta be like, everyone's good at everything. So if you're not, you're fucked. Like, simple as.
Yeah, no, completely. And then, you obviously saw this controversy thing with Conor McGregor saying about leg kicks. He's never taken leg kicks before, but you're 3-0 in your pro career, and I'm sure you've been smashed in the leg a few times, and you know how to give one out. What do you kind of make of that? Obviously, it's just an excuse after the fight, but every MMA fighter should be able to leg kick and check a leg kick, right?
100%. I think he's amazing at making excuses whilst seeming like he's not making an excuse. Because again, you talk about calf kicks. It's like, well, everyone in the world for the last probably 2 years has been talking about calf kicks, because you've seen how effective it is in MMA fights. And they go on about how much of a technician Conor is, as in his teammates do. And it's like, well, that when you fight southpaw versus southpaw, you're far more open for a low kick, outside low kick, than when you fight southpaw orthodox. Like pretty much everyone knows that. So for him to say that it was some massive surprise, I'm like, how? Like, how? Like, maybe eat 3 or 4, fair enough. like Dustin was getting them off really well. But then you can transfer your stance. You can switch stances. He always yaps on about how he can fight both ways.
Yeah.
It's like, mate, you could have done a lot of things. You could have wrestled. But the fact of the matter is you did jack shit. And now you're making out like it was some fucking Da Vinci Code that caught you by surprise. And it's like, nah, it's not. It's not how it works. And then, but the trouble is the average person listens to that and they're like, oh, mate, yeah, he just got caught out. It's like, no, he got beat up.
Yeah, no ways about it.
Yeah. Having said that, though, I thought he looked awesome in round 1.
Yeah.
Like, I do rate him as far as being a fighter goes. I think he's fucking awesome. Like, really, really good. I thought he made Dustin look really bad in round 1. Thought he dominated the clinch as well. It's just how he can get kicked that way, not adapt, and then make out like it was some sort of trickery. As just, that doesn't really fly with me much at all. Because like you say, I come from a boxing background. I boxed for a while before I did any MMA. And for the first month, I remember Lou saying it. He literally goes, everybody low kick him. and you learn pretty quick. I couldn't walk for like 2 months.
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah, I don't get it.
No, exactly. And when you listen to the commentary as well, sometimes the commentary is definitely pitched at the amateur kind of viewer as well, because they say, oh, he's using his jab really effectively. And you think the jab is the bread and butter of every single fighter, and it should always be. So, why do they go on about it so much?
Yeah. It's again, like you say, the commentary is catered to the non-educated viewer, and it's a tough gig because a lot of people, whether they say they do or don't, they have a perception of what's going to happen. Like, say, I'm finding this with Cage Warriors commentary, with Cage Warriors commentators now. They've decided that I'm just a wrestler, and I'm like, well, mate, I boxed for 7 years before I ever wrestled anyone. But they don't know that. Another example is I remember when Mason Jones made his debut and they were talking about his pro boxing. So in their heads, he was a striker. And it literally took everybody tweeting in to say, mate, he's also a black belt in judo and a brown belt in jiu-jitsu, for them to even comprehend that he knew what he was doing in the clinch.
Yeah.
It's not the slag off the commentators. It's not, because it's a tough job. But yeah, it has a massive influence over the fight. To be honest, I watch most fights with my brother. We watch them on mute now. Not because we don't like the commentators, but it influences what happens or what you see. So yeah, we stick it on mute and we just talk and call it ourselves.
Yeah, which is it's usually the best way, to be honest with you, because sometimes they're saying stuff, and especially with this no crowd thing as well, they're shouting in, and I feel like the referees are also getting swayed by what the commentators are saying. Obviously, we had that big thing with Dan Hardy and Herb Dean in the summer last year, and you just think, you're a commentator, stay in your zone kind of thing. The ref's in there doing what he needs to do or she needs to do, whatever. But, just you're in there to fight. They're in there to ref. You're in there to analyze and call a fight. Just stay in your zone and be as kind of unbiased as possible.
Yeah. And I say, in terms of like margin for error, the ref has the toughest job because there is no margin for error whatsoever. And there's such fine lines. So yeah, I'm with you. I don't like it when people get too chopsy about the refs.
Yeah, definitely, man, definitely. I was going to ask, obviously we spoke about Conor McGregor as well, and he obviously made a lot of very, very smart investments in his career as well. Is that something that you feel like you're going to implement into your own lifestyle? Obviously, he's invested in a lot of crazy stuff and his whiskey and that kind of stuff, but that will set him up for life after his fighting. Is that something that you're going to implement into your own game plan, or is it just get to 50 and make the dough and get out?
Most likely invest stuff. Well, there is no most likely about it, definitely. Like you say, I mean, you've got 24 hours in a day, take off what you have for sleep. I don't realistically see how somebody could put more than 5-6 hours of training in a day. That applies to everything. That's like video footage, maybe a bit more if you count video footage. You still have a good few hours left. And I think, yeah, when you hear fighters say, oh yeah, all I can focus on is fighting. And it's like, well, mate, you're the same guy that then talks about needing a break. So there's so much, so much bullshit in what gets said. In my opinion, I think anyone who's not trying to set themselves up that way is just dumb, plain and simple.
Yeah, Absolutely, man. Absolutely. You said about watching tape and stuff like that. Do you watch a lot of tape on your fighters as well, about against your opponents? Sorry. Do you constantly study them over and over again, or do you just kind of watch a little bit and then try not to get it too much in your head?
Yeah, the latter. So I'll watch their fights. Um, get when I got a clear idea in my head of like what they are, which normally means I watch probably all of them. To be honest, I'll watch all of their fights. Once, maybe twice if something's a bit weird. At the end of that, I've got a really good idea in my head of what I'm dealing with, and then I don't watch them again. Maybe I'll have the urge to watch them again, like 4, 5, 6 weeks later in camp. Like, so we're getting close to the fight, and that's it. But then in terms of watching MMA as a whole, I watch fights every day, just because I like it. Like I watch it all the time.
Because some MMA fighters, obviously, they do this for a living, but they don't want to talk about it outside, and they don't want to, they're not watching fighting. Do you know what I mean? But obviously, you watch the fights every week, UFC, Bellator, Cage Warriors, that kind of stuff. Are you involved in all of these different promotions that you obviously watch them, or is there one specific kind of promotion that you mainly focus on?
So I probably focus on the UFC the most, just because of Fight Pass. Literally all of their fights are there, so all you've got to do is type a name into the search engine and you're laughing.
Yeah.
But I do pay attention to all of them. It's just with like say Bellator, for example, like you hear about names on the grapevine before they become famous, and you're like, oh, this guy's supposed to be good. So then you look into him. But I'm doing that just to learn off their skill set. Because again, like the guys who are champions now, if you want to get to that level, you need to be significantly better than them, because by the time you get there, the level will have gone up.
Absolutely.
So you need to be looking at guys. Like a good example is, like an Umar Nurmagomedov who made his UFC debut the other day. Like you need to take him and then think, right, I need to be better than him. He's just a random example that springs to mind. When someone's done something really stand out recently.
Yeah.
Like obviously Max Holloway's performance the other day, but he's another one he doesn't watch. He doesn't like watching fights. So there is no right or wrong answer. It's just something I enjoy doing.
Yeah, I guess it helps to be a fan of the sport as well, because then you can see so many other different fighters, how they fight. You can implement that into your own game plan, etc., or take little bits and pieces from loads of different people. But
yeah,
what would you say was your favorite division then?
I wouldn't be able to choose between. To be honest, I like lightweight down is ridiculous. I think lightweight down is, particularly in the UFC, is so stacked. I think it's the highest skill level by far. And then welterweight's also awesome, but like maybe a smidge less. Like you see guys with like not weak areas, but like certain parts of their game aren't quite there. Whereas like, so you look at the lightweight, not even top 15. Like look at the guys who aren't ranked at lightweight; they are so good. So yeah, I would if I held a gun to my head, I'd probably say lightweight.
Yeah, and if you could emulate someone's career path in the lightweight division, for instance, who would that be? Who would you most aspire to be? I don't like people thinking they aspire to be anyone else but the best version of themselves. But who would you like to follow in the footsteps of?
Well, just because he's undefeated, you'd have to say Khabib, because he's never lost. Well, I tell you what, they say he never lost. I think he lost to Gleison Tibau. Like what was that, his second or third UFC fight? I know he got the nod, but whatever. So for that reason, I'd have to say that. I'd have a little bit of a tough time saying I'd want to emulate his skill set, just because I think his skill set's limited. Like he's not the best striker. He's definitely not the best kicker. His punches are powerful. Like he's dropped a lot of people, but I think most of that is because they're so concerned with the takedown.
Yeah, exactly.
So if I was going to try and emulate someone, it's going to be someone who's like technically just as close to perfect as you get. And I think if you're trying to emulate anyone for that, I know he's not a lightweight. You'd have to say Demetrius Johnson.
Absolutely, Demetrius Johnson is one of my personal goats. When he got swapped for Askren, I was so annoyed because his technical ability was off the charts. And I don't think he lost to Cejudo either. So That's another chat.
No, neither do I. Especially, I think if that fight was now, I think you would have got the nod because I mean, Cejudo was doing a great job getting him down, but he had to literally latch onto him to keep him down. And as soon as he let go to hit him, DJ's up. Obviously, DJ did a lot of damage with the calf kicks as well. So yeah, I'd agree with you for sure.
Yeah, man. So what, obviously you spoke, Cejudo, right? What do you think of his little persona and his kind of enjoying being that cringeworthy person? Do you like that kind of? I always see it's very. We did an episode the other day of it being very much like the WWE and like pro wrestling and stuff like that. I'm not a massive fan of it personally, but what's your take on it?
Yeah, I don't like it. I don't like it. I find it, well, it's cringy. But I think the fact that it's arguably necessary is really sad. Like, not to use Cejudo as an example, but Colby Covington.
Absolutely, yeah, Colby.
I listened to his story where he said that he was undefeated in the UFC. He's about to fight Damian Maia, and they've told him they're not going to renew his contract because people aren't tuning in. So he starts being a dick, and now everyone tunes in, and you're just like, that's sad. Like, it's depressing that people don't tune in for the skill set, because if you want to talk about skill sets, Cejudo and Covington both are really, really good. And I think they both sold out for the money. So no, I don't like it, but I can see why they do it. I don't know if they're married or whatever, but if I had a kid and they were like, right, Ben, if you act like a really nice guy and just, kind of whatever, you're going to make, let's just say, I don't know, 50 grand a year. But if you act like a twat, you're going to make $250,000. I'd be like, yeah, why not? Like, I don't know these people who aren't going to like me anyway, and my kid's going to have a really good life. So yeah, I can see why they do it.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And obviously Colby plays the villain very, very well. And, he does get the boos and stuff like that. And people tune in to essentially, hopefully watch him lose, which, it's not the best way to approach the fight game, but I guess it is a necessary evil. And like you say, social media presence as well. Do you feel like you need to be present on social media constantly to gain followers, gain fans, and be that persona?
No, I don't think so. I don't really post that much. Like, I'll post when I've got a fight booked. I'll post when the fight's announced. Post when I win. And that's about it really. Maybe the odd video of like hitting pads or something. Like, funny enough, me and my mate had this chat the other day. He said that the fact that I'm not OTT, he thinks makes people like it more. But then I was like, mate, like, I can see why you'd say that, because he's not massive on social media either. Yeah. But the fact that there is the people who are more active, have more followers, and then more people tune in. So the fact of the matter is that when it becomes pay-per-view or whatever, the more followers you have, the more people watching, the more people they're going to pay. And that's what the nature of the business is as far as the promoters are. I'm just dead lucky that I seem to have a decent amount of that type of stuff without trying too much.
Yeah. And I suppose you've got obligations to your sponsors as well to frequently post about them and stuff. So you have a little bit of an obligation to do that for them, right?
Yes, I suppose. But I'm lucky that most of my sponsors I consider more friends than anything.
Okay.
So they're not on to me about posting and stuff. It's very much just a case of, we like Ben and we're gonna give him this to do that. But again, as you go up the levels and people are offering you serious money, sponsor you, they expect you to promote their product. Otherwise, there's no point them doing it. And I'm probably going to be awful at that because I wouldn't have a clue what to say. I'll be a social media manager for sure. But yeah, again, it's one of those things, and it's not ideal, but it is what it is, and I can see why people do it.
Yeah, definitely, man. Because lots of fighters. We're just talking about Colby Covington did a video for some. I think it was like an energy drink, but he probably got paid more than he would getting beaten up in a cage. Probably got paid 3 or 4 times that to be doing this advert.
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. I mean, I remember when the UFC took the sponsorship away from their fighters, and a couple of the fighters posted their tax returns to show the money they were making from sponsors to highlight how much the UFC are going to cost them. I think Brendan Schaub, he didn't make it public, but he showed Joe Rogan.
Mm-hmm.
Joe Rogan said, "Look, whoever takes me at my word, like believe me that there's 100,000 worth of sponsorship here." Or for I think it was one fight or maybe one quarter, whatever. And under the Reebok rule, he was getting 10 grand. And he just like, mate, you just literally taken 90K off him. Like that is crazy.
Yeah, it's a lot of money to be taking off for people that are literally putting their lives on the line as well, you know, and taking that damage for not a lot of money. Obviously, the UFC's always been very controversial with regards to how much they pay their fighters. Bellator have always been very well known for paying their fighters very well, but being kind of that secondary promotion. But I guess if you're getting paid 10 and 10, it's a decent amount of money. Does it get you through your camp? Does it get you through a couple of months? Does it give you a good life? Probably not. You know, so you kind of have to weigh all these things out, and having sponsors, I'm sure, is a massive benefit as well, man.
Yeah, that's the thing. See, like you say to the average person, yeah, you can make 20 grand in a night. And they're like, oh, see, what are they complaining about? And then you're like, well, hang about. It's not 20 grand for a night. It's 8 to 12 weeks of training. So in that training, you're doing a shed load of PTs, you're getting massage, you're doing cryotherapy, you're doing this, you're doing that. I mean, God, I spend a fair few grand on my fight camp. So I'm sure some of them go way above that. Because that's with people looking after me. And yeah, it's just heavy, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely, man. You actually touched on cryotherapy there, because it's funny you should say that. A lot of fighters that I've spoken to recently, and even myself, I went down to the quick recovery unit, which is near me. But what is this, like a new thing? This cryotherapy thing that you're doing?
To be honest, I don't do it. I did it once to see what it is, but I
Mhm.
also have an ice machine in my house.
Okay.
I literally just fill the tub up full of ice. Um, I have a thermometer. I can get that below 10 degrees,
Hmm.
which not perfect, but it's not awful. And then I just jump in there for 10 minutes. Because I believe that's all it is. It's just really cold temperatures to help inflammation.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, I was in the other day for 4 minutes at minus 125 degrees, but
Yeah.
naturally, standing in a room for 4 minutes, it was a lot less painful than I can imagine being in an ice cold bath for 10 to 15 minutes would be. Would that be something that you'd implement in your recovery process?
It's really expensive, isn't it? So probably not for that reason.
Hmm.
Um, but how did you find it? Did you feel good after it?
Yeah, I felt good, man. I mean, I do triathlon, so I'm cycling and running all the time and stuff like that. So naturally, my legs get quite heavy, but I felt pretty good
Yeah.
afterwards. And I think it'll be something that I'll implement in my own training, definitely. So
Yeah.
you know, certainly implement it in your game for sure. It could definitely change your outlook on the recovery process.
Yeah, I'm probably gonna have to look into it. As I say, if you're doing triathlons and you say it helps, then yeah, I'm sure it does. Because say triathlons are a fucking nightmare, aren't they?
Yeah, yeah. It's not. It's pretty grueling, but it's very similar to fighting in a way. I guess you have to kind of get into that mental zone and just grind it out for as long as possible.
Yeah, multiple sports as well. So yeah, it's similarities for sure. I would drown on the swim.
Paul Felder was doing triathlon obviously before he jumped in with Rafael dos Anjos. So, and his cardio during that fight was insane. So I can imagine it's probably a good thing to get into for your cardio base for a fighter as well.
Yeah, I think so. I'm quite big on a really big aerobic base, like a couple of times a week, just run for an hour plus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Obviously the downside is you tend to, like you say, when you run on the road, like bad for your knees, etc., etc. But yeah, just in terms of building a base, I think it's essential.
Yeah, definitely, man. Definitely. Well, Ben, it's been absolutely amazing talking to you. Thank you so much for jumping on the channel as well. And
Yeah, no worries, mate. Thank you very much. I enjoyed that. In all fairness.
yeah, it was really good. It was really good. And obviously, you're fighting in March. So naturally, you're going to put that all over your social media anyway. And I'll be retweeting the shit out of it for you as well.
Thank you, mate.
Nice one. But thank you very much for joining us on the Fighting Talk 2 channel. And this will be on YouTube. It will be on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and all of the above. And thank you again, Ben, for jumping on, man.
Yeah, all the best, mate. Cheers.
Cheers.